Edwin Osowski. Goal setting, Monaco style. Goal setting, Monaco style. Edwin Osowski.
How many of us have had New Year's resolutions? Keep your hands up, unless you've already dropped off, forgotten about it, let it go, or put it off till next year. And if you put your hands down, don't feel alone. New Year's resolutions are pretty much the lowest form of goal setting. Would you like to know what works? And what works better?
Yes.
They did a study where they interviewed Harvard graduates, thinking this would be a good place to look, right? 10 years after, they interviewed all Harvard graduates and asked them how many had set goals and how many had written these goals down. And what they discovered 10 years after graduating from the MBA program in business at Harvard, only 3% of the students had written goals and a written plan of action. And those 3% were earning 10 times what their peers were earning. And their peers were merely Harvard MBA graduates. So it's writing the goals and writing an action plan. I've brought with me a pamphlet that you can pick, that I'll be passing out if you would like one, that goes through that. But in 2007, I found myself at a workshop in Monaco getting some of the best advice I'd ever seen about goal setting, because they added a third thing, and that was manifesting. How many of us have seen The Secret? Not too many. You can find it on Google if you look for The Secret by Bob Proctor, and it's a movie about manifesting. And briefly, manifesting would be visualization, or my favorite thing would be taking a picture and putting it on your refrigerator. And then believing that it can happen and allowing it to happen. So, while setting a goal and writing it down and writing a plan of action are essential ingredients, the third step of manifesting for the achievement of those outcomes is phenomenal for a number of reasons. One is it's a lot easier than struggling through an action plan. I wrote down things in my book in 2007 that I look back on now, and it blows me away. Not everything that I accomplished, not everything I wrote down in 2007 has been accomplished yet. Some things that I did apply would be, at one point, I set some quarterly goals. And in a 3-month period, I had been living in a place I didn't like, and I wanted a new place to live. I was driving a car I didn't like, and I wanted a Mercedes. I got specific about that. I wanted a 5-year-old S500 or S430. I wanted a 4MATIC because I live in Alaska. And I've been looking all over cars.com, looking at the pictures to see what I wanted and what it should cost. So I was rather surprised when I found one on Craigslist in Anchorage. And it was a great deal. And I found this on a Saturday, and I'd been calling on this car on Saturday, and I was calling on Sunday, and I realized I was calling a business. And I went to my desk and I wrote out the check for how much I wanted to pay for this car. This was 4 years ago, and the car's outside. And I got it for what I wrote on that check. about a year ago, I decided I didn't want to live in my rented condo anymore. So I bought a house. And got a dog. These were quarterly goals. Quarterly goals was to buy a house and get a dog and to buy a car for my wife. What I missed on that, we got the house and we got the dog. What I missed about getting her car, it took about a year. I didn't realize that she had to pick it out. But I was ready to get the car within 3 months. I want to go on record as saying that. Recently, I've been thinking a lot about the saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. How many of us have heard that before? How many of us believe it? I didn't believe it. And that's called denial. But I've been thinking about it a lot. And then I've been thinking, well, how do you make yourself meet people? How do you change? I mean, you can't make somebody be your friend. But then I realized you sort of can. Because you can make yourself be a friend. So it blew me away when my neighbor across the alley that's been living there for a year came over and introduced himself about 2 weeks ago. And he's exactly the type of person that I've been wanting to meet. But what really happened, the biggest thing, a lot of goals are about losing some weight or gaining some money. Those are common ones. But in 2007, I was single, and I was self-employed, and I was working out of the basement, and I didn't leave there very often. And wondering why I was single. But when I set a goal to change that, it forced me to look at that, and it forced me to make a plan, and the plan was to get out of the basement. And I had to do things that made me uncomfortable that I didn't want to do. I had to get online. I had to go to a speed dating event. I had to do a lot of things that made me uncomfortable. But on the manifesting side, on the believing it could happen, what could happen, and thinking about what could happen, it made me aware so that when I met the woman of my dreams, I knew what to do. Ma'am, would you please stand up?
If we could remain silent until the